My name is Jill Buckley, and I have been the Executive Director of Stewpot Community Services for about a year. I have a long history with Stewpot. I've been in and out of Stewpot for about 20 years, but working in issues around homelessness and poverty for about 20 years. So it was a joy and a blessing to be able to come back to Stewpot after working in the community as a community minister on behalf of Northminster Baptist Church. But when Alan and I first talked about me coming to speak, I was very clear with Alan, by no means am I an expert in this field. Instead, if you invite me to come speak about homelessness, please understand that the first thing I'm going to do is crowdsource with the staff of Stewpot. Because so many of our employees at Stewpot have been around for 10, 15, 20 years. And so they've been in the work, in our shelters, engaging with people, engaging with issues surrounding homelessness for a really long time. So what I bring to you, in part, is what we as a staff put together for you. Hopefully, it was a great learning experience for us to work together in that way, and hopefully we'll have something that can be useful to you too. Stewpot has great name recognition, but we find that not a lot of people know the breadth of what we do. So just for those of you in the room who may not be very familiar with Stewpot, we are an agency that was started, a faith-based nonprofit that was started in 1981 by a group of congregations who were interested in meeting the needs of the people really more or less on their doorsteps. People who kept coming and asking for assistance. And the group of churches that started Stewpot really knew that they could do more together than they could do separately. And that has really been the story of Stewpot's development over time. It's just as the needs have presented themselves, people of faith in faith communities in Jackson have decided to talk to each other and figure out what's the best way to meet that need. Right now we're a group of 13 ministries that provide help with emergency needs like food and shelter and clothing. It's probably what we're best known for. But we also provide supportive services like medical and legal assistance, after-school programs and summer camps for kids and teens, an art class, counseling. We do a lot. The way I like to think about it is through our programs, we provide an infrastructure that can help to catch people as they are falling, sometimes after they have fallen. But through the volunteers that come to us and through our committed staff, we also provide the community that draws around people. So we're kind of a net, but we're also something that draws around for support. So every year, there is a group of people called a Continuum of Care. It's a collaborative that was created to help numerous agencies talk more, collaborate more around issues of homelessness. Every year we do what's called a point-in-time count. It's actually coming up this Thursday, and we need volunteers. So after I describe it to you, if you're interested in helping, please come find me. I'd love to sign you up. Basically what we do is we go out and we try to count how many people are experiencing homelessness in our community. And this is a 5-county area, so including Hinds County, it's a 5-county area. Last year, the Pitt count counted 511 adults in that 5-county area experiencing homelessness. That's adults 18 and over. So, and that's a 24-hour period. We go out, we do interviews, we do tallies, we go to shelters, homeless encampments, bridges, we just spread out and go where we know people who are homeless, who are living or staying. So that's part of the strategy for that. However, we're looking at our data at Stewpot for 2017. What we found is that our men's shelter served 594 men last year in 2017. Our women and children's shelters served 210 women and children. So just at Stewpot alone, this isn't, I'm not counting, of course, all the people who are homeless who are also engaging or coming to Gateway, Salvation Army, We Will Go, any of those other agencies that welcome people who are homeless. Just Stewpot alone, we had 800 people come to us for help with shelter. It doesn't count people who are unsheltered. That doesn't count people who are coming to our opportunity center, to our day shelter. So we know that the problem is pretty large. Larger than we might think, larger than we might be able to count in a 24-hour period. And there are some reasons behind that, reasons that we can all kind of think through, reason through together, like the transience of the homeless population, moving from place to place. There are some seasonal fluctuations. People are homeless at some points during the year, not during others. There are some hidden homelessness, people who are staying with friends or loved ones who sometimes conflict happens and they get pushed out. There are lots of reasons why we can't count everyone. The number itself really is not even static. But we know that if we're talking about how many homeless people are there in our area, it's a large number for our city, 800 or more, based on our numbers. So what might be some causes of homelessness? Again, I'm looking around this room, I see a lot of really smart people who are really good at what they do and who are very involved in the community. And I think that in this room, a lot of people who are really aware of the things that contribute to homelessness, like substance abuse and addiction, mental illness, job loss or income loss that can't be recovered, maybe because of health issues, or people who are homeless because they've had health issues that they can't overcome, maybe because they can't find a job or find a steady income, or waiting in some way. If they have applied for disability income, they haven't been able to receive it. It's such a moving target from the day you apply to the day that you're approved and can start receiving those benefits. People who are victims of abuse and trauma end up on the street. And also, for some, it's just a matter of choice. I have a friend who used to teach sociology at Mississippi College who once said to me, he had experienced homelessness for a period of time, and he said in his time on the street, he realized there are some people who are home free, and there are some people who are homeless. So I think it's important to acknowledge that there are some people, I'm not sure how many, but I really think the number's not that large, who choose to be homeless. But also, I think that something that's really important for all of us to acknowledge in this room is how much support that we have. We all have a pretty significant level of support in our lives if we're sitting in this room. From our significant relationships, our one-on-one, heart-to-heart relationships, to our associations like our churches or congregations that we're a part of, book clubs, tennis teams, fraternities, sororities. We have a fairly good support network to whom we can turn when we need something. And what I have found over my 20 plus years of working with people who live in poverty or people who are homeless is that sometimes, a lot of the times, it's that support structure that falls apart and that creates kind of a hole in their lives that it's really difficult to climb out of. So part of what we at Stewpot and you as members of a community who care about people who are living in emergency and crisis situations is part of what we are called to do, I think, is to provide a support network, friendships, with people who are experiencing homelessness and people who live in poverty. It's not a surprise to you that there's a lack of adequate affordable housing in this community. Are you serious? Only 2 minutes? Okay, let me speed. Okay, and there's an intersection of all these factors together, and sometimes it's a chicken and egg conversation, which came first. It's hard to tell. So I'm supposed to be talking to you in about 90 seconds now about the church and homelessness. Let me mention this. I read a book. There are some books from Duke University's Center for Reconciliation, this Reconciliation Resources. This one entitled "Living Without Enemies," and another entitled "Friendship at the Margins," are probably two of the most important books that I have ever read. Living Without Enemies is the story of a woman named Marcia Owens, who becomes involved in a group in Durham, North Carolina called the Religious Coalition for a Nonviolent Durham. It's really about her journey of learning how to stand with, literally, sometimes, victims of violence and their families. In this book, the authors, Sam Wells and Marcia Owens, talk about what they call 4 levels of engagement. It's really important for us to think of as we think about how the church engages. Working for, working with, being with, and being for. All levels of engagement are needed at some point. Working for. Doing something for someone that they literally cannot do for themselves. Working with. Working alongside someone to accomplish a goal together. Being with. Sitting with a person in their pain or in their brokenness. Or being for some sense of advocacy. What's so important, I think, about what Marcia and Sam point out in this book is that if you are working with, if you are engaged in some kind of relationship with people who are living in poverty, a working for relationship usually only magnifies the inequality. And there's a power relationship at play. If you are doing something for someone, then, especially if they can do it for themselves, it just magnifies the inequality. And as the church, we all know we are called to a different life than that. Working with someone acknowledges, of course, the gifts that are in the room that everybody brings to the table. However, being with, I want to read this to you. This is a really important sentence for me. The being with, something we don't often think about when we think about the homeless population. But they say sometimes the obsession with finding solutions can get in the way of forming profound relationships of mutual understanding. And sometimes those relationships are more significant than the solutions. I think this is true. I think we all want to find a solution to homelessness because we do not want our brothers and sisters to be living in those situations of such vulnerability and pain and brokenness. However, I think we sometimes move so fast into fix it that we fail to connect on a personal level. Shane Claiborne, in his first book, The Irresistible Revolution, wrote, let me see if I can get this right. He said, I'm convinced that when the poor get to know the rich, riches will have no meaning. And when the rich get to know the poor, poverty will come to an end. So the problem is not about money. It's about how estranged we are. It's about our need for reconciliation. It's about our need to get to know one another across these massive chasms of difference sometimes. although we find that if you sit down and get to know someone's story, you really see how much in common you probably have. We're all in need of God, relationship with God. We're in need of knowing how broken we are and how much we need to know God. And those things are human no matter where you are. Those are the same. So, one last thing. Do I have 1 more minute? Okay. So, occasionally when I was at Northminster, I had a chance to preach, and I just want to preach for a minute. I was thinking about this yesterday. When I was thinking about what I was going to say today, I was remembering a verse that we read at Northminster every first Sunday of Advent. I mean, we read these verses from one of the Gospels every first Sunday of Advent, which means we're reading them the Sunday right after Thanksgiving. And and they come from, depending on, I guess, which Gospel you read. I'm thinking about Luke 3 right now. When John the Baptist comes, he's coming to preach a baptism of repentance for the forgiveness of sins. And what does he say? He says to the people, he said, the axe is at the root of the tree. And any tree that does not produce good fruit is going to be cut down. And the people say, what should we do? What are we supposed to do? And he says, if you have two coats, you need to give one away. If you have food, you need to give that away too. Well, maybe for the first time yesterday, it really occurred to me that John the Baptist, as my friend Helen Tallier says, was the forerunner. He was the forerunner. And he's telling us how to get ready for God coming in the flesh. Y'all, people need coats and they need food, but that's just the beginning. That is the repentance part, especially for people like me who have everything that I need. That's my repentance. And that's just me getting ready. That's me getting ready for meeting God in the flesh. And sometimes that God in the flesh comes as the person you are least likely to see as God in the flesh. And for me, a lot in my life, that has meant someone who doesn't have a regular place to sleep at night, or someone to watch for them to come home, someone who is homeless. So, the end.